You're listening to The Bunker, New York, live on Redbull Radio.
Hello, you're listening to The Bunker, New York on Redbull Radio. I'm your host, Brian Kasenic, and today I have some very special guests from Mr. Saturday Night. That's Justin and Eamon. They have started as a local party, grew into a record label, then a venue, an outdoor venue, and now also an indoor space called Nowadays, where we hosted an edition of The Bunker Limited last month and have another one coming up on March 30th with Mike Servito. And we'll be chatting with them about all that a little later. But right now we're going to get right into the mix with them. So stay tuned and enjoy. This is The Bunker, New York on Redbull Radio with Mr. Saturday Night.
listening to Redbull Radio.
Hello, you're listening to The Bunker New York on Redbull Radio. I'm your host, Brian Kasenic, and we've been in the mix with Mr. Saturday Night. Actually, that was all Eamon. I guess, Justin, you're going to do the second half? Or I'm
going to try my best.
Yeah. Or because you were late, Eamon's just going
to... He's just going to do everything.
Yeah.
It's not going to be as good. Everybody can just chin up and go home and do something else. That was the best.
So Eamon's throwing down the gauntlet here on the radio. If you're not watching on Facebook Live, you should tune in for the fight that's going to happen once I start DJing. It's going to be great.
Right? Yeah.
Maybe
have you ever had fisticuffs like on the show before?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Well,
but there's a first time.
Going down
for everything.
It's going down.
Get multiple people involved here.
Let's all do it.
Yeah. Jordan Bunker versus Red Bull versus Mr. Saturday.
Yeah.
Death match.
Versus Jordan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Fake news.
Yeah. So maybe we should start by talking about, this all started as a party. So let's start by talking about Mr. Saturday Night, the party, a little bit. You actually started out in a nightclub.
Yes.
That was Santos Party's house.
Santos
Party House.
Santos Party House. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, do you know why it was called Santos?
No.
Because originally it was supposed to be called Santa's Party House, but somebody got in touch with them and, like, I don't know if they threatened a lawsuit, but somehow they threatened them and they said, you're trying to market your club to kids by calling it Santa's Party House. So at the very last minute they changed it to Santos because somebody told them they had to.
I think I have heard this story and totally blocked it out of my mind.
Yeah, there you go.
But it didn't last very long at the nightclub.
No.
And then what came next? Market Hotel next?
Market Hotel was next, yeah.
Okay, so why this move away from, you started off in like a very official, legal, straightforward Manhattan, not even Brooklyn, a Manhattan club, and then you quickly went in another direction with it?
Well, Santos had all this promise. There were a lot of really great people that were involved with Santos.
Yeah, I remember.
Spun was doing the bookings.
Yep.
And Spencer Sweeney was one of the like really involved partners in the business. Andrew WK was involved in the business.
Yes, I remember that.
You know what? Like, he's got this kind of like pastiche like character.
It's a character though that he's, or is he really that guy?
No, actually, he's really that guy. I say that's this like character, but he's got this like image out there. But he was the most positive and like fun person to work with. He was really, really a great guy. And anyway, that all led to this like real excitement about Santos. And so when we started Mr. Saturday Night, we started it with the hopes that this would be a different club experience, because we did want to have something that was a different experience. But whatever, combination of just like too many cooks in the kitchen, the pressures of New York, it made it really hard to do anything there. We had some good nights, some really cool things happened there, but after I think like 10 parties, it was done.
Yeah. Was it every Saturday?
Well, this was one of the issues. Is the idea that we came to them with was, hey, we know what will really work here is to do a party that is consistent. We do it every single Saturday. That's going to be great. We can build something that's really excellent. And they were like, yeah, okay. And then almost from the get-go, they were like, oh, I'm sorry, guys, we got this thing booked on this Saturday.
It's interesting because that's how, when we started the Bunker, and I remember in the 90s, that is how New York operated. All the clubs and bars and everything was weeklies. That's just how they booked them. You're the Thursday night party, you're the Friday night party, you're the Saturday night party. But at some point, we've gotten way away from that for the most part. Like a weekly residency in New York is quite rare, especially at a big place like Santos parties. I can't think of anything like that that's a weekly residency in a huge like.
No, well, at Santos they
other than when we do Mr. Sunday in the summer, it's a weekly thing for
half the year.
Half the year we do like 25, 26 of them.
Wow, yeah. I feel like it like expands a little bit every year. It's like we're doing another month.
Oh, we squeeze
and another month.
Right.
Hey, like, global warming.
It's 55 degrees. We're going to go into November. Let's keep doing it.
Yeah, thanks to Donald Trump, you might be able to go like year round soon. You know, just
make America great again.
No more cold weather.
Oh God. God, Brian, why
sorry
did
to
you
take
do
it there.
that?
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay,
do
so
that?
so you moved to Market Hotel.
Yeah.
Just run was Todd P involved then?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he
Todd P
always was,
involved
right?
then. Yeah. I think he had and still holds the lease on that place.
Yeah, he's still there.
Yep. And yeah, I mean, that was how I came up throwing parties. Like the first party I threw was at some bar, Le Souk. It just came to me. Do you remember this place, Le Souk?
I remember reading. I mean, I first knew of you through your mailing list,
Right.
The new
Yeah.
release thing.
Yeah.
And I remember reading about your parties on there. I don't know if I ever went to one of these, but I remember hearing about them through your mailing list.
I had this mailing list. Yeah, that was a really fun thing to do. I have like dreams of doing that. Again, just so people know what we're talking about here. When I was like 23, just out of college, I got a mind to I really wanted to understand what was going on in New York, try to wrap my head around it. At the same time that I was really digging deep into music as well. I was just trying to generally understand culture in New York. And the task that I gave myself was to write a newsletter every single week and send it out to this email list. And I would write about everything from dance performances to weird food events to parties, of course, live shows. And there was a time for a few years there where there wasn't a band who was playing at Mercury Lounge that I hadn't checked out online to see if I liked them or not. I was really, really absorbed in many aspects of the culture of New York. It was a really great time. Anyway, flash forward a few years and Eamon and I partnered up, and originally when we started our business together, that was part of the business. I was still going to do the newsletter and we were going to throw parties, and eventually it became clear that there's no way to make a living from writing this newsletter.
Yeah, because I did a newsletter too.
Oh, right.
Remember? And
Yes.
it was
Yes.
never, I never had any idea to make money from it. And then Flavor Pill kind of figured that out, right? They actually
maybe.
maybe, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I mean, they're still
still
around.
exist.
There's
Right.
still,
They
I
must
have
be
no
making
idea
money.
their profit statements or,
Right, yeah,
but
yeah.
still they were trying to do that. And then there was always Jeff Stark's list, which is still around.
Which is amazing.
Nonsense. Still amazing.
What a guy.
So there were a lot of people doing this. It was I feel like it was before a lot of websites existed that were
I
giving information, and just people just a filter. You need a filter. A lot of people are looking for filters to experience New York life. It's just so much. So to get an email that just is, I've kind of, like you said, gone through everything. I've listened to every band playing at Mercury Lounge, and here's the one show that I think is really cool this week.
I mean, I actually, one of the reasons why I still have this burning desire to do it is because I feel like there's a real need for it. I mean,
Yes.
Nonsense has a really good thing for whatever. I mean, everybody who's doing it is going to have their own perspective.
Yes.
But I feel like if you were doing your list still, it would be a really useful tool, because there's not really anything out there that's distilling down the world of nightlife for people and being hey, trust me, I go out all the time, I listen to music all the time, this is really great, and here's why.
Yeah. You
But-
kind of get it a little bit with the RA picks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
RA's
And they
couple-
have their weekly email as well.
That's what, they do.
Yeah.
In the email, it's these are the 3 things or 4 things that we think are really,
Right. Yeah.
but
I think it's just a thing you need to be very dedicated to, and
it's a lot of work. That's why I stopped
in our
doing
case,
it.
in your case, was I can't do this and
Right.
be a label and a party. I have to choose one or the
Yeah.
other, and that's what happened with us. We were this, there was a fork in the roads, and we got to decide which way to go. So we wrapped up the newsletter and just focused on the parties.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think after a few years, I had the newsletter and the weekly party at the same time, and then it just became I can't do this, and I'm trying to promote my own thing.
Yep.
And I'm promoting all this other stuff, and nobody else is doing that, so I started
Right.
feeling like a bit of a chump in a way. There was that aspect of it. So yeah, it just kind of became the bunker mailing list after some time. So when you were doing the parties at Market Hotel and 12 Turn 13, I can't remember what years those were, but you almost always had a guest DJ then.
Yeah.
Yes. I mean, when we started at Santos, we always had guests. So it was
Right.
always, it was always a model where we had somebody else in the mix. I think because we both met because we were booking DJs at different places.
Right.
So
Justin was at APT.
I was doing some bookings at Studio B.
Right. I remember that.
And so it was. I guess there was two reasons for booking guests. We were still a new party at that point, so we had to like grow an audience. And one way of growing an audience is actually book people that there's demand for. Yeah. Right. And put it on in a way that that people appreciate, and then they know the experience for more than just the DJ you've booked. It's like, oh, like I went and saw Harvey because I'm a Harvey fan, but it was a great party and the sound system was good and the drinks were reasonably priced and everybody was really nice and there was like a culture around the party that like I want to go to that again, and it doesn't have to be Harvey. So the guests helped us build something by sort of drawing people in, and also like we were booking our heroes to come and play with us, and we were super psyched to play with Harvey and Omar S and Theo and Moody Man and all those guys.
Amazing experience, especially when you're somewhat starting out, a young DJ, and then
to be like sharing the decks with these guys was incredible. But then what happened is, over time, I think the culture and the experience of the party became the dominant thing rather than the booking, right? And we started to like feel that that's the reason the people were coming to the parties, was like this broader experience, and people were coming that didn't even know who the quote unquote headliner was, right? And at that point we realized that we were onto something that was bigger than the guest, but also like the thing that we'd always aspired to do, but I guess we weren't sure if we were going to get there, but it started to happen. And then we used that as a way of sort of fulfilling our own ambitions as DJs to be like the sort of center of the thing that we'd built. And so we started to do less bookings and DJ the parties all by ourselves. And what happened then is it really felt like it went to another level, because we were developing this relationship with the crowd, like a consistent crowd of people that were coming back over and over again. And really like intimately understanding that dance floor and those individuals, and how the party, the dynamic of the party existed. And I mean, it just sort of went from there, and I think at that point then you've got something truly unique and different. And we just kept doing it from there, and then just to roll forward on the whole story of Mr. Saturday Night, I guess get up to today. Through all these years up until recently, we were in temporary spaces. At nighttime, they were most often illegal, and in the daytime, they were fully legalized, but very very temperamental from a real estate perspective.
Because Gowanus, it ultimately started as the Yard, became Gowanus Grove. That you guys made your events there legal.
Yeah.
But from what I remember you telling me, it was actually like sometimes a week to week basis, the like permission from the community board, the local police department or something. They could any week, like the day of the event, they technically could just say, not screw today. You guys.
Yeah, it was really stressful. Like we had many
sounds incredibly stressful.
We had many meetings with the captain of the precinct, sitting at the table, like begging him for this like weird permit for amplified sound that like nobody ever since has even talked about, because it doesn't even seem like
it didn't apply to us. It was just this thing, whatever. It was just one of these things where like...
Anyway, you're sitting there begging the police captain for permission, and he would never give it to us. So we always had this hanging over our heads. We just kept doing the parties, like, waiting for them to show up.
But because technically they could shut down the party because you didn't have the amplified sound permit, so they didn't want to give it to you because it gave them leverage?
Yeah.
Well, it was this funny thing where this really came to a head at one point where they said they wouldn't give it to us anymore, and we went and pled many times. And I wasn't there, but I remember Eamon telling me the story of being in the precinct and waiting in this little kind of like foyer,
the waiting area.
Yeah, the waiting area there, which is just like a little fenced-in area. Like
it was like Hill Street Blues, where they all like hang out, and there's the guy looking over.
Yeah.
I'm showing my age now, but yeah.
But anyway, so he was waiting, and the captain came out of the room, and Eamon stood up and was like, "Hey," and the captain knew because he talked to us a bunch of times. He knew what Eamon was going to ask for, and he's like, "Listen, I can't give it to you. You do what you got to do." And then he walked away. And so we had to wonder if he was saying basically like, I'm in a place where I can't give you permission because of political pressures that exist on me, but you do what you have to do means like you do your event and, we'll see what happens. And so we like thought long and hard about whether or not we would do it. And we were like, well, it seems like he's giving this as kind of like wink and a nod that we could do it. And so we did it, and they didn't come down and shut us down. And
I mean, you were respectful. You kept the volume was never crazy at those parties. You ended by 9 p.m.
Yes.
You weren't like
pushing
it.
We really went out of our way to. I mean, it's always been an important thing for us since we started there, and we were in that neighborhood, which is like super residential, one block on either side of us, to really be respectful of the neighbors. We would go around and talk to the neighbors before we'd start the summer and be like, "Wait, we're doing this." We would knock on doors.
Oh, wow.
For blocks and blocks, like go up and down the streets, and really get the temperature of what was going on, because we really didn't want to be a nuisance to people.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's what gets you into trouble, really. People, you're a nuisance. They're complaining to the police. The police don't want to have to deal with it, but then they have to because the people in their precinct are complaining about you.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
But, I mean, this is just a small example of many challenges year to year, venue to venue, with officials, landlords, bureaucracy, and then the uncertainty of like the property just disappearing. Because like all the places we talked about, I mean, I guess Market Hotel's kind of back, but like everything, all the other spots we did,
they're gone.
Parties, they're all gone. We did a edition of Love Injection last year where they went out and took photographs of all the places we'd ever done parties, and virtually all of them are like condos now or something else. That's funny. that is not like a DIY loft or an art space or something cool, right?
Yeah, those places tend to always have an expiration date.
Right.
So is this maybe why you've moved out? I mean, I really wanted to talk about nowadays in this interview. We haven't even started that yet. Is this part of the reason why maybe you chose a spot that was a little further out and you don't have a lot of really immediate residential neighbors, right?
Yeah, 100%. When we were looking for the property that would eventually become whatever thing we were going to start, we had these requirements. One, it had to be in a manufacturing district because that was the only way to get a cabaret license.
Yep, that's true.
Two, we wanted to be relatively close to a subway. It couldn't be within like a block of residential neighbors. And it had to have outdoor space and indoor space. So...
And you gave this list to a real estate agent and
we knew what we wanted.
You were looking and had the list.
And when we talked to brokers, we'd be like, this is what we want. Of course, brokers will take you to places. They'll be like, I got the perfect place for you. And then like, there's an apartment building on top of this. What are you doing? Anyway. But anyway, long story short, we're in it nowadays. We opened it up. It took a long time, and now everything is easy and great and just like no nonsense.
We're retiring, and that's it. Yeah, the end.
Well, you've worked really you've been working really hard on the venue, but I mean, you're working towards something with more permanence than I mean, working your ass off at Gowanus Grove to squeeze a few months out of it. Yeah, maybe this has to be a better feeling.
Well, there's just Yes, and there's a longer payoff. There's like the potential. I mean, our lease. Is it okay for us to talk about how long our lease is publicly? I don't know. We get guarded about things like this, right? Like you wonder if it's okay.
That usually seems maybe not. I don't know how public that. I know that about most venues in New York, I feel like.
Right.
I'm always curious.
Well, we have a 10-year lease. We're 3 years into it. And so, the way we look at it is, we're always trying to figure out a way that we can make it last for longer than that. But we look at it and we say, okay, well we got 7 more years out of this.
It's a long time.
It's a good amount of time, we would love it if the place becomes an institution and we can somehow convince somebody to buy the building for us and, just have it be home forever. But if it lasts for 7 years, I think I'll be still satisfied with it. Talk to me in 7 years.
Yeah.
I'll change
ready to get the fuck out of here.
Right, yeah.
So I think the sound system in nowadays, for starters, there's a lot of things I love about nowadays, but I think that sound system is like the nicest sound systems I've heard in New York, and maybe one of the nicest sound systems I've ever heard, really, in a nightclub. How...
Brian...
Thank you.
So nice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's really true.
Hard to hear that.
It really does.
And
because you have heard a lot of sound systems and played on a lot of sound systems, and that means a
as
lot.
of you guys, that's why I guess my next question is like, how did you arrive at what you wanted, and how did you get this job done?
Well, oh man,
when we started. So, very long story short, we weren't sure that we could start building the inside because we didn't have enough money, and we had a design and we costed it, and it was like we can't afford it. So we went back to the drawing board and we stripped it back to bare bones, and we costed that, and we still didn't have enough money. But we did we took a bet basically that if we started by the time we needed the money, we would have it somehow. Right, we were like, we'll figure it out. So we started, and
genius business decisions by DJs.
Yes.
That is definitely some DJ logic there.
And
it's cool.
And part of it was there was no sound system. We took the sound system out of the budget because we were like, we have a sound system. We have the sound system we use for Mr. Sunny. It's a fine sound system. It's it's a bit of a mongrel. It's been added all turbo sound, Yamaha, bespoke Jim Toth stuff. But it works well. So we're at the very least we can start.
You own a sound system,
yeah. But then as we got into it and we actually were able to raise some money from investors, we got a little bit more ambitious around sound, and we went to all the manufacturers to try and get a free sound system. We're pretty bullish about hey, you should get we're Mr. Saturday Night. You should give us a free sound system. and they all told
people were lining up.
They were all like,
should I try this strategy? This sounds great.
Yeah, don't try.
Bunker.
They were like, who? You're who? So none of them gave us a sound system.
That's amazing.
But it was
I don't think anybody's ever even given us a free pair of headphones
before. Damn, we're not good at getting free stuff. Well, maybe we'll get a can of Red Bull today. But what was interesting is the process allowed us to really understand what it would cost. And we'd been talking to Shorty for years about his systems, and we did a boiler room thing at Analog, and we loved the system there. And
and you remember the story about how we met Shorty in the first place was pretty cool. Somebody just emailed us out of the blue in 2011 or something like that, and they said, hey, we've got this amazing sound system that was custom made, and we would love to just hear it at your party, no strings attached. We just want to hear it set up at your party. And we got back in touch, and we were like, we have our own sound system. It's really nice, but whatever. You get emails sometimes, and you're like, people are trying to do nice things, but you think about it, and you're like, this is going to be more trouble than it's worth. The guy emailed back and was like, I don't think you understand. This sound system is the prototype for this system in stereo in Montreal, which Francois K says is the best system that he's heard since the Paradise Garage, and he said a few more things, and we were like, oh, okay. And we got on the phone, and they were like, we really will come and set it up, and we'll pay to have it installed, and the guy who built it will come and do a tuning. And we're like, all right, we don't have anything to lose here. And it was Shorty, and he came in and he set it up, and it was brilliant. And standing in front of that system was the first time I felt like I was on a real New York dance floor. Kind of had forgotten about what it felt like to be on a dance floor, at it was at Vinyl.
Yeah.
When I first got to New York, where it was just this like visceral body feeling that you
Yeah,
get, right?
and it is a very New York thing. Going
Yes.
back to Twilo and Paradise Garage and all these places. It's
Yeah.
like it's a sound
Yeah,
that Shorty has studied.
which comes from, Shorty worked at Zanzibar. It was like one of his very first gigs. I think when he was a teenager, he would like be the guy for the audio company that Tony Humphries would call and be like, "Hey man, one of the boxes is blown. We need you to come in." And so Shorty would work on this Richard Long system, which was like right up there with the Paradise Garage system.
Yeah.
People who've heard both, who were like nerdy about it, will be like just as good, or people will be like, "Oh, that one was better." Whatever.
Yeah.
It was a Richard Long system. It was serious. Shorty then went on to work on the Twilo system.
Right.
And so he's got a real pedigree. He really, really understands what he's doing. And the thing that makes his system special, and I think gives his systems the sound that they have, other than like he's using really good components and he's like studied acoustics in a really smart way.
I mean, he builds all his own cables, everything.
Yeah.
It's really intense.
It's a four corner, four kick system, whereas most systems these days are designed in a European way, which is this is not me like trashing somebody's version of a sound system. Like the sound system at Panorama Bar is amazing and it's set up the way I'm talking about. Sound system at Robert Johnson is amazing and it's set up the way I'm talking about, where all the kicks are on one side of the room,
Yeah.
and then the tops are the things that are on the four corners.
Yeah.
But what you get from that is really clean, evenly distributed bass.
Yeah.
But you get more pressure when you're closer to the kicks. When you're farther away from the kicks, you get less pressure. Whereas when you're on what I would call like a New York dance floor with kicks in all four corners, there's this pressure that comes from all sides. And there's weird cancellation and stuff like that. But when you got somebody like Shorty who really knows what they're doing, they minimize that to a great extent. And you just get this really visceral feeling that you just don't get on another dance floor.
Yeah. And he does those flown tweeters.
Yeah, which
too,
is like,
which are really like
Yeah.
it seems a little kitschy or something, but then
Yeah,
when you
yeah.
hear it, it's like no, it
it's cool.
adds like this real
Well,
3D.
when you
fun
turn them
tool,
off,
yeah.
when you turn them off, you really notice something
I'm sure.
missing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So very cool. So you did a Kickstarter to race.
That kind of continues the story of like how we got there, because as we were going through the construction and we were bringing in all these sound companies and they were all saying, no, we're not going to give you a free sound system. We're like, well, we're not actually really interested in your sound system if it's not free, because we're not that excited by it. It led us back to Shorty, and we also had an idea of like what it really costed, so we could like sit down with Shorty and kind of figure it out. And then to do it, we needed the money, so we did the Kickstarter, and we had no idea how much we could raise, and we were nervous about asking or setting the target too high, because if you don't hit the target, you don't get the money.
On Kickstarter, you don't get it, right?
So we were like, okay, well, we felt nervous, but also somewhat confident, or we felt it was realistic with a good effort we could get to 50 grand. So that's the level we put it at. We shot a video and we stared at it for like 2 months and realized it was not a good enough video. So then we went and got somebody else and shot a new video, and that felt a lot better, and we edited it and spent a bunch of time on the prizes and the copy and just the whole package. And then we went out, and the response was just overwhelming. Like in the end we raised like 117 grand.
Jeez.
I think it was 103. It was
All right.
Either way, it's
I mean,
impressive.
yeah.
I mean,
Over
100 grand.
Yeah, and
People
so
really want good sound.
they want good sound, and they also just wanted
want
to
to
support
yeah.
this story, like the culmination of this almost decade-long story of like finally finding a permanent home, building a permanent home, and taking everything to a new level. So yeah, we bought the sound system, and that's what's in there, and I think it's a real sort of focal point of the experience of the parties at nowadays. So we're super happy we did that.
So the venue, the indoor part, has been open how long now? A couple months? Since the beginning of the year?
Since December. I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Soft opening. The very first party that we did that was open to the public was in early December.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're now, from years of all your parties in New York being Mr. Saturday Night, Mr. Sunday, mostly with you guys playing, now you've got this new challenge of booking a venue
Yeah.
How like what's your approach to that, and how has that been going?
It's really exciting because, I mean, you talked about like the arc of like booking guests at the beginning,
and then becoming more of a residence thing, and now you're back into.
Yeah,
oh,
I mean, we'd started over the past couple summers to book guests again at Mr. Sunday.
Right, I noticed
like
that.
once a month or something like that, because it just felt like felt good to do that, right? So we've been like dipping our toes back in the water. But what's been really nice about booking the way we're booking at indoors and nowadays is we're reaching out to locals. We're really, like, after many years of existing in our own bubble where we're like really concentrated on our party, and I'm sure you know how this is, like, you got your own thing going on, and if you're a nightlife person, like, you like to go out, but a lot of times, like, you kind of get that energy that you want to get from going out by doing your own party.
Yeah, I do.
So you're not like going out a lot and going and hearing other people. I don't know. I don't want to. Maybe you are, but like, I wasn't going out a lot to other stuff.
Yeah, I haven't stopped over the years, but it's mostly the events I throw, and then of course the gigs I play, and then good friends like my resident DJs and label artists when I can go out and support them playing other parties in New York, but even that becomes very difficult,
right?
Because I'm getting older and I'm still spending a lot of time in nightclubs, and it's not always what I want to do when I have a night off.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So what's been really nice is to just put our heads back into what's going on in New York, and it's a really amazing time to do that because there are so many good things that are going on right now.
Agreed. A lot of DJs, old and new, who are really coming into their own, and cool parties happening. Yeah, other venues opening. I feel like there's this whole wave of people that kind of came from the era of bossa nova opening. A lot of them I see playing it nowadays now, that just kind of, there was finally a place where they could play techno in New York, where they didn't have to know a lot about event production or anything. They could just show up and play, and now a lot of these people are playing nationally and internationally and getting recognition, and it's just a lot more people involved now, and it's been really cool to watch that happen.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think that's what we're trying to become. We're trying to become a place that is rooted in New York dance music culture first and foremost, and that's the identity of nowadays, and not a place that is focused on chasing and competing for the big bookings that are coming through town, because there's a limit to that, where you're just a music venue, really, that you're just kind of like churning through the standard process, and it's not really that exciting to us. And also, frankly, just a really tough business. Like, it's really like the fees that DJs want, with more clubs existing in New York competing for those. There's very little money to be made on a night. Yeah. If you're paying these exorbitant fees. So the obvious and clear path to us is to build something around the talent that we're excited by, that exists in New York, and therefore to make it a very unique place that is not trying to copy something great in Europe or the competition in New York, for that matter. And we've been working with artists like Aurora Halal and Daniel Fisher, Physical Therapy, and the Analog Soul Girls and Working Women, and it's been super fun to sit down with them and like plan a party. It's in some ways, I think about it as we're kind of like the way we grew our own party. We're sort of starting like 8 parties and like growing those using our experience, but with the personality of like the people that we're working with. Right,
like who are they excited about? Who would they like to play with? Giving them the chance to play on their own.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool approach, and something different for New York in a way.
And the whole thing, like playing on our own, just to add to what Eamon said before, it wasn't, at least in my head, it wasn't like a foregone conclusion that one day, well, if the party gets big enough, we just won't have guests anymore. There were a couple moments that led to that, and one was a party that we threw with Chez Damier and there was like this like torrential rainstorm. It was outside. Our equipment got destroyed. There was one CDJ left, and he played on one CDJ with a microphone and would like talk in between them. It was just like so cathartic. It was such an amazing night. And at the end of the night, this is also like this summer where like the apartment that I was in caught on fire. We lost the Gowanus space. It was pretty like, I was pretty shaken.
Yeah.
Had no money. Just like dirt poor and getting married. I was headed home with Chez Damier and was probably being like, well, he's such a sweet man and such a like an open man that I think he was just kind of like encouraging of me, like opening up to him. And in the conversation,
did you cry? Did you cry on his shoulder?
No,
it was the rain. It was the rain. Yeah, my eyes are wet. Yeah.
I might cry now. No, but on the way home, I'll remember it always, sitting in front of the apartment where we were staying for like 2 weeks because we kept having to move from apartment to apartment. And he said to me, he's like, hey man, you know what? You guys are doing a really cool thing and you should think about doing you. He's like, I love getting booked. Don't get me wrong. I'll come here and play for you anytime, or something like that. Like he was talking about how he's like not trying to talk himself out of talk us out of giving him some work. He's like, but the truth is, if you really want like your thing to grow, you need to focus on you.
Yeah.
And so that was this like moment. And then there was another moment where I think it was the next year, or like 6 or 7 months later, when I was living in Berlin for a short while. Eamon was here, and we scheduled parties so that, you know, we would do like 2 in 2 weekends so that I could come back and I could play them. At one point, Todd Terry was supposed to play, and I think he had to cancel, and we just canceled the party. And after it, I remember kind of like regretting it a little bit. And then shortly thereafter, Danny Wang was supposed to come over. And you remember the big Icelandic volcano?
Yeah. A lot of gigs got canceled because of that.
So Danny couldn't come. And at first we were like, oh, we got to cancel. And then we were like, wait a second. Let's do it ourselves.
Yeah,
like
why not?
we want to play more ourselves. Let's do it ourselves. And we did it, and people came. I think it was like, 150 or 200 people came. It was this really cool loft called the Brooklyn Urban Sanctuary. Do you remember this place? And anyway,
it was on Bergen Street in Prospect Heights.
Yeah, where they would do sex parties there like other nights, and so when we would throw our parties there, like people who didn't get the moment that it wasn't sex party night would like be like making out on the beds that surrounded the dance floor. It was like this is pretty like great like energy in that place. Just people really felt free. It was a home, right? Anyway, we did a party and it felt great, and that's kind of like. Once we did it, kind of gave us confidence, and then we started programming more of these parties where we would like be like, okay, this one we're going to make a decision where there's not a guest, it's just us playing, and slowly that became a thing that we did. Anyway, the reason why I mentioned this in the context of the bookings that we're doing right now is it took us a long time to get there, right?
Yeah,
and I feel good to be able to say to a group of young DJs like working women, like, hey, you know what? You do a night on your own. You should have that experience. You should do that now and figure out what that feels like. You don't need to wait and like only book guests to play with you for 3 years before you get there. Let's try this now. And let's let like what is hopefully some momentum behind nowadays and whatever the momentum that's like happening in New York around nightlife carry you, and not just assume that like you need to just always be opening up for somebody, right? So that's one example of like a lesson that we learned over time that we're kind of like, trying to carry to other people who are playing with us. But there are plenty of other things that we've learned over the years, and it's nice to just be like, okay, we don't need to go into this pitfall here. Like, we can do your party like this.
Right. You're using your experience to help these other young promoters and DJs,
right?
Which I think is really cool and generous. But you're also benefiting from it.
We benefit from it too. Yeah. That's like, what we hope is that nowadays is like, is something that helps everybody rise, everybody who's involved grow. Right. I mean, that's what a good thing does. I mean, Panorama Bar, it's a classic example, right? Like it's the one that everybody talks about, but it's a really good example of something that has established its own identity and brought up people who probably wouldn't be where they are if they weren't associated with the club.
For sure.
But they deserve to be.
They were always talented.
Right.
And they picked the right people, but they gave them, you're giving people a platform.
Right.
A really great one. So.
Right. Yeah. And that's a two-way street, right? It's not just like us sitting here and being like, the benevolent. Like,
of course.
It's like, it's good for us too. It's good for everybody.
Yeah.
If you could have a space where it's not what Eamon was saying before, where it's just like you're in this arms race to like book the biggest DJ all the time. This is good for everybody.
Yeah, it just doesn't work, that strategy, after a while.
Right.
I mean, we certainly do. Like, we've moved more. We still have our big guests at the bunker, but it's like over the years it's become more and more that the guests who are coming in are now part of the party. They're part of the label. Our resident DJs have become huge, and like the whole
Yeah, like, you've done a great job
moving towards this idea where it'll just eventually be more or less just every lineup, even if there are somebody who's clearly a big headliner on there, they're actually
from the bunker,
a part of the bunker.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And it's been, before we completely finish the interview, I'd like to talk a little bit about doing the Bunker Limited there. It was really great. We did this first one and you, like, the first venue I've talked to in New York for a while, when you approached me and I approached you about doing the bunker there, and I had the idea of it being, at least to start, our local resident DJs playing all night, and I thought you might balk at that, and you're just like, it's great. Like, Patrick do the first one, Servito do the second one. This is awesome. This is exactly what we want. I'm like, wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, it fits in perfectly with
it's really great to have a venue where this makes sense, and I know like the crowd really loved the first one. Patrick really loved playing there, and we're looking forward to more. Yeah, doing Mike Servito on the 30th of this month for the second edition of the Bunker Limited at Nowadays. And are there any other special things you want to call out? I know you have a lot coming up.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's like what things do you talk about
once you have a venue? It's like
right. Yeah. Well, what I will plug, and actually this fits in well with what I'm about to play when I do play a little bit of music here. We do this thing every Sunday night in the non-Mr. Sunday season, so during the winter, called Planetarium, and that's really special and unique. And people come in. It's a 5-hour long thing. It goes from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. And we have like yoga blankets in the space, but some people like bring their own blankets and pillows, and we have couches, and people lie down on the floor or lie on the couches or sit on our plush chairs and just listen to music for 5 hours. It's totally silent in the listening area. People keep their voices low in the bar, and it's a really, really, as a DJ, it's a really, really amazing way to play. It's funny. I don't know what I expected it would be like, but it's a lot more sensitive of a DJ environment than I would have imagined it would be. I find myself often like playing a song and then putting another one on my headphones and being like, whoa, that energy is way too much, even if I would have considered that like a mellow song otherwise. Yeah. Because when it's silent in a room, like people are really tuned in the music, and it's very nuanced things really pop out to you. Right?
Are people asked not to talk, or does that just kind of naturally happen?
No, what we realized after we did the first one was that it was a good idea to just make it like part of the party, to say like, hey, we ask that you don't talk in this area. And people have now kind of like bought into that as like part of the thing. But the first one we did, it was a little chattery, wasn't it? Right.
The first one at Nowadays?
No, the first one at Nowadays was on point. The first one at Nari's house.
Oh, the first couple at Nari's were chatty.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, it feels like everybody who's coming now really gets it. And because the first few we did at Nowadays, we put like a sandwich board up with like the rules about no talking and cell phones and stuff. But we don't do that anymore, and everybody just falls in line. They understand it, because I think that we've got that text online for people to see it when they're setting the come. But also, like, there's an area where you can talk. It's not like you walk. It's not like a monastery or something. You walk and you can't talk until you leave. Right? You can talk by the bar. There's the banquet seatings on the other side. You can talk. We just ask people to like talk quietly.
Right. So if you're on the like dance floor listening area, you're not distracted by chatter, right? Like you're really like immersed in the music. So anyway, that's one thing that is really exciting to me, and I think really unique to nowadays.
And that's every Sunday?
Every single Sunday,
wow.
yeah. Until we start Mr. Sunday, then we'll just do Mr. Sunday. But yeah, that's every Sunday. And then we're doing our party this Saturday. Aurora Halal, Eamon was just talking about her. She's doing stuff regularly nowadays, and Kasem Moss is playing with her. And actually, if you're listening, we haven't posted this. We mentioned it in our email today, but we haven't posted it on any of the event information yet. I just talked to Aurora today, and Kasem Moss is going to do an ambient set for like an hour and a half at the beginning of the night.
Oh, very cool.
If you're like, he was supposed to play a 1 hour long like dance floor set later on in the evening, but he's stoked about the sound system, and I think he's like really interested in doing something different. Yeah,
he's a cool guy. I've known him for years. I can see him. Yeah, that being really exciting. Him playing early.
Yeah,
so
I'm pretty excited.
That's awesome.
So that's this weekend too?
That's tomorrow night, yeah. And,
okay.
And then tonight, House Coalition, which is an organization that was pretty instrumental in repealing the cabaret law.
Okay.
They, oh, sorry, I'm being asked to play some music here. Yeah. There we go.
No, it's not working.
Do I have it on reverse? Sorry. There we go. Now I can DJ. But anyway, they're doing a fundraiser at Nowadays tonight, and Doug Sherman from the Loft and Joy family, Ali Coleman, who I played a gig with him at Bossa a couple months ago, and I knew he went to Body and Soul, but while we were playing, he did this thing where I'm gonna back away from the mic when I do it because it's pretty loud. He goes, "Work, work, work," and I remember as soon as he did this that there was a guy from Body and Soul who would do this, and I was like, I turned to him and I was like, it was you. Anyway, Body and Soul regular, Paradise Garage regular, great DJ, awesome dude, amazing energy. He's playing tonight, and then Loft Kid Luis, who's like, his mom would bring him to the Loft when he was young, and actually his mom's birthday party is also part of what's happening tonight as well. So it's like, it's a real family affair tonight. So anyway, that's the happenings this weekend. We could go on and on, but
I think that's enough.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good idea of like what's kind of thing you have going on every weekend.
It's a good sampling,
Yeah.
Cool. So, well, we've talked a lot more than planned here. We've got 20 minutes left.
Yeah.
Do you want to, if Eamon will let you play a few
Eamon,
tracks?
is it okay if I
Take him on the journey.
Okay. All right. Here we go.
20-minute journey.
We're going to go deep into 4 songs.
All right. So thanks a lot. We still have 20 minutes left in the show here. Justin's going to play us some music. You're listening to Mr. Saturday Night on the Bunker, New York on Redbull Radio.
Right. Yes. Thanks for having us, Brian.
Yeah, thanks for
Brian.
coming on.